All right, let's get moving. Thanks everybody that's joining in for the lightsaber class. We do this every Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, right here on TikTok. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of warm up a little bit before we get into our movements. As I'm doing strikes, one of the things I wanna avoid is that overextension of my hand. And so with the warm-ups, I'm gonna go all the way back so that I'm getting full range of motion and everything. But I don't wanna do this at the end of the movement, right? Because that is something we wanna avoid, because you can basically give yourself tennis elbow and other types of tendon inflammation. That if we can skip that, we wanna skip that. So after I've gotten kind of loose, I've warmed up a little bit, we're gonna dive in. KB, welcome in, man. All right, so starting with lefty, with your non-dominant hand on the very bottom of the saber handle. We're gonna do 10 of these. I wanna trace as straight a line as I can. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're gonna do the dominant hand. Oops. One of these days we'll have to do some TRX as a part of the workout, since the strap's always in the way. And now when you're going through your warm-up, if you lose track, just assume you've done less. And so if you're like, man, I don't know if that was 7 or 8, call it 7. Thank you for the hearts. All right, because part of what we're doing with the warm-up is we're getting our body moving, we're getting repetitions of like our foundational skills. And so if, while you're going through it, you're like, oh, was that 6? Was it 5? Don't spend longer thinking about it than it would take to do 1 extra, okay? Or 2 extra, or 3 extra, or whatever. If you're going through and you realize that you're like most of the way done, you're like, crap, I didn't count. Just do 10 more. Just start counting from the point that you realize that you forgot to count. All right, we're gonna do the forward and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're trying to stop parallel to the floor. And that's gonna help us avoid that little bit of wrist overextension, especially across a lot of reps. You'll feel it kind of down here. And we don't want that to happen if we can help it. Welcome in, folks. Now, if you have something you can strike, we're gonna do 10 strikes where we whack something today. And so I have my buddy Bob, who for a very long time was employee of the month here at St. Matthew's Martial Arts. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do 10 coming down. Might have been 11, might have been 12, I don't know. So, oh man, there's an AI summary. That's new. Oh boy. Okay. So with the overhead strike, there's some stuff that modifies depending on range. For what we're doing right now, I'm bringing hands to core. And so because I'm coming in here, then as I'm making contact, I'm not gonna hit and extend. That's a mechanic for the overhead strike we're gonna incorporate a little bit later. And so right now we're kind of just dropping. And so the Level Up Sabers pin is available on the site, levelupsabers.com. Also a Level Up Sabers pin, and then that's one of Boston Scally's in general. And then my Apple pin is normally right here, and apparently it fell off. Okay. Now we did this one towards the end last week, where Saber comes up like the roof of a house, step, turn, strike, and we're ending parallel to the floor. Now this one we're gonna do as a flow. So instead of hit, stick, I'm gonna no, let's not do that. Then I'm jumping a couple of weeks ahead of what I want to have you guys work on. All right, so we're gonna do this as a stick today, and then we'll whack Bob here in a second. So, house, step, strike. 1, 2, 1, 2. Remember what we're doing with the feet. Step, turn, step, turn. Step, turn, step, turn. So with the hands, okay? I'm seeing names pop up continually. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate everyone that's here for class. Okay. I think this gives you an okay angle. So what we're gonna do, I step. With the first step, I'm pointed at the diagonal, and then the swing step brings me around. So I'm coming from that off angle. And then as I transition, okay? And so if you think about it, kind of like two triangles next to each other, I'm gonna turn out. I'm gonna grab a couple of sticks so I can kind of show you guys. And so depending on how you think about it, this can look like an M or this can look like a W. But what I'm gonna do is I step and then turn, so I'm lined up on this side. And then I step, turn, and now I'm lined up with the other line. And so what happens, if I start right here at this, again, whether we want to think about it as the W or the M, if I start here at the point in the middle, then I'm going to step, turn out, and then the deflection comes up as I step across. Now I've got a foot on each side, and then I turn out again, and that's the other strike. Okay? I'm gonna try putting you guys here. So ready? We're gonna do 10 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And with the lightsaber, we don't have to spend a lot of time worrying about getting stuck. And so there's a bunch of stuff in sword technique that the way that they train or the way that they practice or the method or whatever is because you're trying to not get the blade stuck partway through, because then you got to kick the person off in order to have your weapon free again. And so a lot of the technique, the way that they would practice, is think about different ways to make sure that that doesn't happen. And now earlier in class, KB asked whether I'm bringing hands to me or extending with the top hand and reaching out. And one of the reasons with a bladed weapon that they would hit, stick, extend is because that keeps the blade from binding in the skull, which if it binds, yes, okay, you got your strike effective, but now in order to get your weapon back, you've got to remove it. And that takes a whole lot of energy once everything is stopped, especially if the person's falling over. And so you build into the mechanism of the strike, hit, stick, extend, so then the blade is freeing itself in the process of delivering the blow. Okay? And now, if you imagine an X-Men logo on Bob's torso, and so we have the X going down and across, okay? The line that you wanted to think about taking was sort of here through the collarbone so that it would come out below the rib cage but above the pelvis. Because I don't want to have to cut through the whole rib cage, because then I've got to do a whole lot of extra work. And I don't want to go too steep of an angle, because then when I get to the pelvic girdle, it'll get stuck in there. So I want to be able to come out through here. There's a long story on this one that I'm not going to tell, but like we're thinking about going through the spleen. Okay? So that is the path that we're sort of thinking about. Now, while you're practicing, especially because we're practicing lightsaber, we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So I haven't been emphasizing it very much as we're going through. It would transfer into a lot of the Japanese blade arts and some of the Korean ones. But especially if we're trying to do lightsaber, if we're looking for fitness, that doesn't matter. That isn't one of the things that we need. Okay? And so if you want to get some of the like historical traditional, then it's there. But if you're looking for being more competent with your lightsaber and being able to have fun and all that kind of stuff, like those are details we don't have to spend as much effort on. We want to be able to have good, true strikes so that when we're working with a friend or a partner or we're constructing choreography or whatever, it keeps everybody safer. But I don't need to obsess over details while I'm practicing, especially if I'm doing it for fitness or whatever. I'll move these sticks out of my way. Side note, this little bit of padding is the stuffing that we literally just hit out of Bob. Okay. Now, we did the 4 strike and the 5 strike last week, which are the horizontal blows. And so we're going to work those just a little bit today. I'm going to scoot this away. Yeah. I'm going to practice these from the high guard first. And so I'm going to step in and deliver from the high guard. I need to be just a little bit farther away so you can see what's going on. And so if I start right foot forward, I have my guard up. If I take the back foot and I step through, so I'm thinking about basically occupying the space next to Bob. Like we're going to be shoulder to shoulder, right? And so what I'm trying to do is if we're like lanes of traffic, right now we are pointed directly at each other. As I deliver the strike, as I move, the space I'm trying to occupy is the lane next to them. So now we're going to be passing each other. We're just going to put the lightsaber in the way. All right, so let's do that. So from high guard, step through, okay? And that's gonna be our forward strike, that's our body strike. I don't wanna push the cut through with my thumb. My hands, I need to rotate my grip, see what my finger's doing? So that the palm is driving it through, not the thumb, okay? This one, KB? Or do you mean the diagonal? Okay, so what we're gonna do, from high guard, as we step through, we're gonna drop and deliver, okay? And so, I'm not thinking about it happening this way, I'm thinking about it happening, okay, kind of in front of me. Because as my body travels forward, I'm dropping the blade in front of me, all right? And I wanna think kind of like I'm cleaving through as I step and as I cut. Okay? And so it's gonna make contact kind of more towards that side first, and then as I travel, it drives through. And so then when we do the other side, okay, I'm not thinking about this part of the blade, so I don't get a lot of radial velocity there. I want to be at the end. That's where my leverage is. So your footwork is going to be, so I'm coming off the line. And so if I start right foot forward, the left foot comes through and off the line, and then the right foot's going to tuck. And when I'm going the other side, we can do all of these with other foot. I'm just starting with one that's more easy to make symmetrical. So as I go to the other side, I'm doing this same thing where I step through and off the line. Okay, so I come from high guard, whoop, drop as it goes forward. Lift, step. I'm having trouble getting everything in frame, sorry guys. Okay. So for that footwork, what we're using right now, okay, let's see, 10:50, still got some time. So we're gonna do 10 of these. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to flip it to the other half of our 10. So start right foot back, lift, drop, step, hit. 1, 2, 3. So it's a little high. 4. So we're thinking about trying to get in below the rib cage. Last one. Make sense? All right, and so KB asks, how would we apply it as a counter? And so you wouldn't necessarily do it from up here. We're doing that while we're practicing. But if you think about offense, defense, counterattack, whatever, it all mushes together, right? It's a stew, it's chili, okay? And so like chili, you get all your ingredients into place. 2V, I'll get that one next. You get all your ingredients into place, it's not done yet. Because all of the pieces are there, but they haven't mingled yet, okay? And so every weapon art, functionally, the counter to whatever movement the person is doing is one of two things. It is either the reflection of what they're doing, or it is the same thing they're doing, like slightly off timed. And so if you're coming in overhead, I can interrupt an overhead if I accelerate at the correct moment. Like if you're coming in over the top, as your blade starts to break the front plane, I can interrupt that with my own overhead strike and claim the middle. If you're coming down, I can also go up. If you're moving to this angle, I can get to that angle faster, or I can move to the opposite angle to reset us or to hit your open side or your closed side or whatever. And so you could use it as a counter if you're faster, where if the person is starting to move in, then you just take the lower half and move by them before they can punish with another counter. Or if you get the person to lift up as a part of their defense, like if you get the person to lift in some kind of way, well then folding down into the open section is another way that this fits in. It's hard to open with a horizontal strike. It's much easier to fit it in once you're a little bit closer. But because it telegraphs so much more in its path than a lot of other things. All right, now 2V asks, what is the best way to disarm someone? Now, the good news is Star Wars has shown us a whole lot of people getting disarmed. And so like with the lightsaber, you know, anywhere between wrist and elbow is a really good spot. But a non-facetious answer, like what is the best way to get the weapon out of the person's hands? And so basically every weapon art that allows hand targeting, whether that is a sport or a competition, any weapon art that allows hand targeting. Hand targeting is one of the easiest, most consistent things that you can attack. And if you break their tools, you break their spirit. And so if you break their ability to use their primary weapon, then like that impedes their ability to be in the fight at all. Okay? And so from a lightsaber standpoint, the best way to disarm someone is wait for their hand to get far enough away from your body that you can take it away. But a couple of things. Hands in general. This group of muscles right here, if that gets impacted, it makes your hand jump. And so that weakens your ability to hold on to stuff. Now, if you've got a two-hand grip, if somebody weakens one of your grip, but not both, you haven't necessarily lost your weapon. But Sellsword Arts recently did a video where they were talking about how the handle of a sword is the lever that controls the sword. And so if you have two hands on the lever and your hands are far apart, you have good leverage. If your hands are really close together or you only have the one hand, you have much less leverage to control the blade. Well, if the person is rigidly holding their weapon, you can use a lot of different circles to use the blade as a lever against the handle, as a lever against their hands to make it kind of pop out of their grip. Like if the person is like really, really white knuckling because they don't want to lose their weapon, in a lot of ways it can be easier to get the person to lose their grip because you can use that rigidity to upset them more. And so if you imagine like riding a bicycle, if I'm holding onto the handles as tightly as I can and my frame is really rigid, I feel every single bump in the road and I have much less control over my bicycle. If I have a controlled grip where like it is firmly in my hands but I'm not rigid, then all the bumps and everything else, I have a lot more ways to absorb that shock to be in better control. KB, I tend to stop the match when I notice the tight grip. And like a tight grip can be a sign of aggression, but it's like if they're like really, really rigid, that's where using circles against their lines is a really, really effective way to make the person lose control of their weapon. Because you'll by moving any part of the weapon, you're going to move a lot more of them, as compared to if I have a firm grip that isn't rigid, then as somebody manipulates me, I have more ability to change my lever and change my direction and stuff. Whereas if I'm really rigid, then when somebody manipulates my weapon, they move my center along with it. All right, so the workout that we did today, we did our warm up as like a sort of a full range of motion thing. It's the first time we've done that one. And then we did the standby single hands, and we did our forward and back. And then we did some whacking stuff. Now, if you're in a spot where you can hit things of the sets of impacts that we did, we're just going to repeat them. Partially because it's fun, partially because everything that is happening in life, the universe, and everything right now, it is nice to be able to like kinetically express oneself in a way that is not socially harming, but also like getting the impacts tells you the truth about your form. And so if I make contact and I feel pinches anywhere, that's where force is getting stuck. I have something wrong with my technique. And it might be that my wrist is overextending. It might be that I'm trying to pull my wrist back instead of allowing it to come to a neutral position. It could be that my feet are off. There's all kinds of things. Like wherever it's pinching is going to tell me like where my issue is, where that pinch happens is where the force is getting stuck, and that's where I need to figure out how to make a modification. So I'm really quickly going to do my 3 sets of 10 again. I'm going to bring you guys a little bit closer, because if we beat the stuffing out of Bob again, I don't want you guys to miss it. Two, 3, 4. And now if you notice, I'm doing this with a step in, and I'm kind of hit, stick, extend, which is something somebody asked about just a little while ago. 5, 6, missed. 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we do the angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Before we redo the horizontals, so you can see some of the hot spots that are developing in my hand from the impacts. And so if that is something that starts to give you any kind of issue, get a set of gloves. Weightlifting gloves work great. We always have lacrosse gloves lying around because when you're practicing, having all the protection around your hands and knuckles is great. But so if you start to notice, and it'll feel hot because it's friction with the handle that's causing it to happen. And so if you start noticing hot spots and it's a problem for you, gloves. And then you can keep working. Bicycle gloves work too, because it's the same kind of thing. They get hot spots in the same places we do for gripping the bike handles, and they still need to be able to like have the sensitivity of their fingers. Okay, and so those work great. Now we do our horizontals, and that's going to wrap us up for today. So there's 5, now we do the other side. I'm gonna move you guys just a little bit so we don't run into the camera. I did the other footwork on that side because I like that footwork better. All right, anybody questions while we're here? Okay, now as soon as I sign off, I'm going to be creating a coupon code. Any leg exercises? I'm going to do legs next week. I got a plan. Because we want to do calves, quads, and glutes. In no small way. I'm going to start a coupon for the website. Like as soon as I sign off, I'm going to get logged into my computer. I'm going to get this created. But we are doing buy two, get one on the website. We just hit 140,000 people here on TikTok. We're up over 1,200 on the YouTube. We're over 5,000 on Instagram. And so we're going to celebrate that, but also give people a chance before the new Darth Maul show comes out to save a little bit of money on either getting practice sabers that will be great as a part of Darth Maul, or if you need like the collector's pieces, I have all of the Darth Maul sabers on the site. And so that anybody that wanted to like use this as an excuse to kind of fill out the rack, fill up the display shelf, it'll be there. All right, I think that's everything. Guys, I appreciate everybody being here today. KB, I'm really glad that you've been able to join me several weeks in a row now. I'm gonna have to message Kenny because Kenny was one of the originals, so I gotta make sure he's doing okay. But folks, if you have questions or there's things that you want to see in future classes, let me know, and we'll keep working together. And it's trying to get just a little bit better every week, trying to get just a little bit better every day, and that begins with foundations and having good techniques so you can prevent injuries and preserve your body and all that kind of stuff. Because if you're going to be a martial artist in your 40s and your 50s, you can't screw up your elbows in your 20s. You can't mess up your knees in your 30s. You can, and you can learn from those lessons and then adapt. But if you start with the intention of doing martial arts into your 50s, into your 60s, then having the approach at the beginning of like really emphasizing technique so that you're being intelligent about using your body, that's where we want to be.